Richard, can I shut the lid of your laptop without bad things happening? Thank you. One should always ask. At a conference the other day, somebody tried to plug my laptop into the projector, and I had to run across the room to stop them because, of course, you never know what's on the screen of your laptop before it goes live to everyone, and that can be very embarrassing. I'm sort of here under false pretenses. I'm not here from the BBC archives at all. I'm here as me, Bill T rather than BBC Bill T, because I'm not going to talk about the archives. I hope you weren't expecting me to. I don't think you were, really. So how many of you have read the first half page of my talk yet on Twitter? Thank you, Matt. Good. Always reliable. Good. Nice. Okay. I brought printed versions of it as well. I only had time to do 20, but I will hand them out later because the text matters. And what I'm about to say, when it's written down, is different, and when it appears on a screen is different as well. So I thought printed versions would be quite nice. And I want to start by pointing out something that we all know, but we too often choose to deny, which is that words in a particular order are incredibly powerful. They remain the primary machine that we have for moving ideas around. The things we do with them are astonishing. We've constructed industries and ideologies and religions and careers, for some of you, scientific theories, everything on the back of them. And once the words were simply spoken and then remembered or forgotten, imperfectly recalled. But once we started writing them down, their power increased significantly again. Writing, to me, is the most important invention since fire, and the transformative power of the alphabet simply cannot be underestimated. It matters so much that we deliberately reshape the brain function of every child in order to make them literate. Because unlike language, reading and writing aren't hard-coded into the neural organization of our species. Words matter. So far, so good. But not every collection of words in order is the same sort of thing. And we know this already. As I said, we acknowledge the massive differences between oral culture and literary cultures that I've just alluded to. And despite the tropes of every horror movie, the incantations that matter these days aren't the ones that are spoken out loud, even by a bunch of teenagers in a cabin in the woods. They're the ones that are written down. But we're here to talk about publishing for digital minds, and I want to draw your attention to another equally significant distinction than the one between oral and literary culture. It's the one between words in order that have been printed and bound in a book and words in order that have been captured in a file on a computer. And it's that distinction I want to explore today. I want to argue that words in order that have been printed and bound in a book do something different from words in order that have been captured in a file, that they are distinct classes of literary object, if you like, and that we shouldn't treat them as identical or even as very much alike. It's a distinction that Anthony referred to earlier, and it's something I think we know, some of us know intuitively, but rarely bother to explore. And sadly, much of the publishing industry, people like Tim Waterston, seem dedicated to ignoring that distinction, and I think it could be the ruin of you all, not to put it too bluntly. You see, it's my view that books and ebooks and apps and enhanced ebooks and every other sort of neologism define what I call ontologically distinct entities. They have different characteristics, different affordances, if you like. And even though they all fall into the superclass of objects that contain words in a particular order, the things you can do with them are different. And these affordances are wide and varied. One of them is the affordance of making money for someone. But sadly, that's neither necessary nor sufficient to turn something into a literary object of the type I'm describing. It is not an innate characteristic of words in order that you can make money out of either writing them, distributing them, publishing them, doing anything with them. And I think that the model of the universe that we increasingly encounter that sees the book as an object being capable of being translated into a file, that somehow the book is the thing and the file is derived from it, is bound to fail because it doesn't respect the essential differences between the two. I suffer from having a philosophy degree, and so I'm aware of the work of Willard Quine, who wrote about the indeterminacy of translation. The fact is you could never adequately translate between two languages. Well, that sort of thing applies here. There is no adequate translation between the printed book and the e-book. They're different things. They are, to coin Wittgenstein's term, they are participants in different language games. Because the real distinction isn't between the ink dot and the pixel. It isn't between the page and the screen, or indeed between digital and analog, or between printed and posted. It's between passive and active. A book, a beautiful book, a gorgeous book, sits there. It will contain the same words every time you open it. It's outside the stream of the network. It rarely interacts with the world or, sadly, interferes with the thoughts of even a single reader, and that's its merit and its damnation. A book, as Benjamin pointed out, is the only thing that is the thing it is, even if the words it contains are perfectly reproduced 1,000,000 times. It's printed, it's dead, it's done with, it's furniture. It's also, therefore, an object that can be weighed or sold or bought or traded and treasured. It has a history. The books I own define me. They fill my walls. They tell the story of my life in a way no other objects can do or ever will. The book has a history, and that history is important, but the book doesn't change or adapt. The book happens in the space inside your head, and every time you open it, you get the same experience. And that's why I would argue that an e-book is not a book. It's not a part of any book either. An e-book is an active part of a digital ecosystem. It swims in a different ocean. It's an object like any other online object. You can open a book on the Kindle, and it will have been automatically updated for you. It lives in that way. Of course, it can do it without asking for any tedious confirmation, and so the current reality can be seamlessly inserted into your atlas, and you can discover that Crimea is part of Russia, just as Oceania has always been at war with Eurasia. So this is not in itself a trouble-free concept. But it's possible because an e-book is a file. And a file is a file is a file is a file. It is a bucket of bits in the right order to be interpreted at some point as words or images or code or anything you want. It can be copied, it can be transformed and reformed and shared. It's part of an emergent digital space, and it partakes of all of that. And because at heart it's just a file, an e-book is never finished. An e-book is never cleanly separated from the rest of the flow of bits. It's active, it's part of this wider ecosystem. There's a good reason why you can't have a second-hand e-book, just like you can't have a second-hand MP3 or a program. It's because all bits are essentially the same. Think about the process of reading an e-book. To do that, you actually copy its bits from storage, you interpret them, and you display them on some sort of screen. And every time you do that, you're creating a perfect digital simulacrum of the digital object, of the file that was sitting there. Something has no original if it is a digital object. When I was writing up my notes for this talk, I was sitting on a train, typing on my laptop, the words were appearing on the screen. Every now and then, because I'm a cautious writer, I'd press save and they'd be saved to file. Because I was connected to the internet, those files were being drip-fed to my Dropbox account, and the document I'd written was on my laptop, on my desktop machine at home before I had got off the train. Where is the manuscript there? Where is the original? What is the thing that I wrote? There are the words in order, but the way they're captured, the thing they sit in, does not compare to the forms of writing that were possible before. When we move our words into files, different possibilities become expressible. Sometimes we try to resist those possibilities. The Kindle, the Kobo, the iPad are killing jars for words. The point about those machines and those closed ecosystems is they deny the book's electronic existence, offering readers the simulacrum of a page, piercing every letter with needles to hold them into place on the e-ink screen and give the companies behind them control of the ecosystem by limiting the real possibilities. Amazon controls what you can do with a book on a Kindle. Apple controls what you can do with a book on an iPad. Files don't need to be, and in my view shouldn't be, managed in that way. And with help from publishers and authors and agents, they won't be. Because it is about time we engaged fully with the technology. This is not a new game. We've had 70 years of digital computers, 40 years of e-books, 30 years of the internet, 25 years of the web, 10 years of Facebook, and the iPhone is 7 years old. This is not new technology. We should be horrified at how slow we are to adapt to something which has been changing the world while we weren't looking for 7 decades. We can't look to newspapers for help because their business model is completely broken. We can't look at the music industry for help. Basically, the music industry shot itself in the foot, put its foot in its mouth, shot itself in the head. And he's doing very well, thank you very much, honestly. The blockbuster movie so distorts the movie industry that I don't think it's a suitable model. So perhaps we need to look to ourselves, to look to publishing as something which can do it differently. One thing to consider is that publishers may not be doing the thing that they think they have been doing, publishing books. That actually the process of publishing is about bridging cultural capital. It's about exploiting the power of reading. It's about creating affordances and experiences in the minds of readers. And the fact that they have been attached to physical books for 500 years is contingent, and the reality of what publishers do is different. That it's about ideas expressed as words in order. Go back to where I began. And if we break from the idea that it's all about books, that doesn't mean that books don't matter. It means that other things become possible. And we need to start thinking about the separation between the novel and the e-book, in the same way as people working in interactive entertainment understand the fundamental differences between Grand Theft Auto and Angry Birds. Nobody would call them both computer games and expect people to think of them as doing the same thing in the same way. They offer completely different experiences. They live in different parts of the ecosystem. So can we begin to appreciate the separation between the text as printed and the text as captured in a file in a way that will allow new things to become possible? It's like the point in the early part of the 20th century when Einstein was puzzling over something called the Michelson-Morley experiment. Michelson-Morley experiment seemed to indicate that the speed of light was constant in a vacuum. And this didn't make any sense at all. And Einstein sat there and basically he thought, what would need to be true? What would need to be held for this to actually be genuine? For this to be a fact about the world and about the universe? And that's the heart of the theory of relativity. How does the universe need to operate so that light has the same speed observed in any direction of the Earth's travel around the sun? What needs to be held true? I think today is an opportunity to ask which things about publishing can be held true, and then what needs to change around that? How do we move from a Newtonian model to a relativistic model? How do we take full account of what digital technology can do? Another way of thinking about it is to consider Copernicus. Publishers and agents and authors still act as if printed books are at the center of the universe and all other forms of publishing revolve around them like planets around the Earth, like the stars around the Earth. And this is the Ptolemaic model of the solar system, and it certainly works up to a point. But if you have that view, if you see the printed book at the center, then it makes it really hard to understand or explain the behavior of Twitter or Facebook, of YouTube, of iBooks, of Kindles, of everything else. these newly observed stars wander through the universe, occasionally going off in unexpected directions, and it becomes really hard within publishing houses large and small to explain their movement, to figure out what it is they're doing, where they're going. Many chickens get slaughtered, but the entrails tell you nothing about the direction of travel. Because if you assume that the planets can only move in perfect circles around the still center that is the printed text, then you have to calculate their deference and add epicycles and do all the other things that the pre-Copernican astronomers had to do in order to try to make sense of the observed universe and the stars. And we know that a better model puts the sun at the focus of an elliptical orbit for each planet, the stars an unimaginable distance away, and makes things a lot simpler. So today, can we explore the possibility that the book isn't the center of things? It doesn't mean that the atmosphere we breathe on planet publishing isn't formed mostly of books. It doesn't mean that books aren't important, or even that books can't have a form of digital expression. It just means they're not the center of the universe. So, what is the center of the universe? Well, from where I sit, it's the internet. Stupid. Once you can make perfect copies of any digital object, once you can transfer that digital object to any device without effort, then all of the things that you've built a business on stop being opportunities and start being inconveniences. Either inconveniences for you or inconveniences for your readers, who in the end you want to give you money. If you can stop building epicycles, stop acting as if the digital stuff circles around the printed text, then we may all just be in with a chance. But as Copernicus might have said, you need to find your focal points before it will all fall into place. Thank you.